story of siege warfare was a story between reinforcing the city walls, increasing the strength of artillery, reinforcing the city walls, increasing the strength of artillery. But in the end, you were outdeveloped with your architectural possibilities, your structural possibilities, but the artillery continued to be modernized. So in the end, this was a kind of a battle which was won by the artillery. And then city walls fortifications lost partly their importance, which also meant that tunneling lost its importance, because most of the wars in 18th, 19th century were moving warfares. Now tunneling is also a very slow process. You can only dig a couple of meters a day. So when you have a rapid war over land, tunneling is useless. Although it was still in the manuals of the engineers. And in the beginning of the Great War, once after the first months, when the moving war turned into a stalemate, into a trench warfare, this technique becomes popular again. But instead of digging towards city walls, they were now digging towards each other's strong points. And initially the French and the Germans are having the lead in this technique, and that comes so far that the British at one moment become really obsessed with tunneling. But the fact that they are blown up everywhere themselves. And then there is a quite eccentric man who made his fortune in the mining industry, and he went to the War Office and he says, look, I have a solution for you. The way how we are approaching this is wrong. This is just an additional task for our engineers, which are already overburdened with all their work. What we need to do is create specialist tunneling companies, which we should fill with miners. And of course miners, where do they come from? From Yorkshire and from Wales, many of them. These people know how to dig. We don't need to train new soldiers. We need to put people who are used to do this, bring them to the front as fast as possible, give them some engineers as officers and let them start working. First he's turned down, but his proposal is turned down, but this tunneling from the enemy is affecting the Brits so strongly that in the end they're following his advice and they start creating specialized tunneling companies, which are then brought to the front almost overnight. Some of these tunnellers don't know the difference between a corporal and a general. The only thing they have to do is dig. Give them a shovel and dig. And from that moment you see that the Brits, who were a bit behind initially, are then starting to take the lead, despite the fact that the Germans were using exactly the same system, using mine mineur company as they called them, but the Brits rapidly catch up and take over even the Germans. Now then, what were initially very shallow mines, undeep, small charges, maybe a couple of hundred kilograms, that then develops into a real elaborated large-scale mine warfare everywhere. The tunnels start becoming deeper, the charges become larger, and by 1916 it's already a very popular technique, and that's what the Brits here, but the Germans are using exactly the same, of course. They're digging as well, but the Brits are then digging towards the German front in order to prepare their attack. What they will do is always selecting the most important, the most dominating points. And if I just say that I'm now looking from the German side to the British side, look what an overview you have here. So no wonder that this was the place which the Brits really wanted to capture, because they knew if they wouldn't capture this, they would go nowhere left and right of this. So they start tunneling here. There was another tunnel near the main road there. But they start tunneling to this place. First digging not completely, but a rather vertical shaft, looking for the ground layers, and then when they find a stable layer, then they start digging towards this place. And they then exploit this mine about 1 to 2 minutes before the attack. In fact, this was, well, not really a double mine, but because a double mine would be one shaft which at one moment splits, branches off in 2 or 3 even directions, and then with 2 charges a distance from each other, creating 2 craters. This one was a variation on that theme, and if you look well, you can see it in the bottom. There were 2 charges, but with the idea to create 1 crater. And if you look, it's on the bottom, It's wider as you would expect from a center. There's not one central point, it's a bit too wide. So what they did, they were exploding first a charge of 11,500 kilo, let's say 23,000 pounds, and then immediately after a second charge from about 27,000 pounds, creating a much larger effect. And you can still see that with some difficulties, but you can still see that in the base of the crater. It was this, but also the other mines, was described as pillars of fire. So a large column, some say I was more than 100 meters above ground level, a mix of earth and fire. Some pilots who were warned that they shouldn't come too close said that part of the debris were even touching their planes. Immediately after, about 2 minutes later, the attack comes and the place is captured. Very dominating because you had to advance further on. However, the rest of the attack is going wrong. Left and right, the troops are still under fire from the German other higher positions, so they don't move there. And at one moment, these troops, meeting so much German resistance, start shifting towards the protection of the mine. Because you see, we are standing on the rim, which is the earth, which creates the ring around the mine, and that is a kind of a breastwork. So the soldiers who had in fact to go there, well, some were tasked to occupy the mine itself, but others had to move left and right. They are looking, of course, for the protection of the mine, and they're also drifting into this direction. So the rest of the attack is not a success, but this was an impressive success, but a very local one also. What we see then, a number of lessons are learned from the whole approach in the Somme. What did they do wrong here? Well, first of all, blowing the mines in advance. That was not smart, because you gave away that you were intending to attack soon to the Germans. Now 2 minutes is not much. That was difficult for the Germans to recuperate from that. But 10 minutes, half an hour, that's far too much, of course. So you were provoking counterattacks from the Germans. The other thing is that the mines in the Somme were rather seen as isolated aspects. We have a problem here, a German strong point, blow a mine. We have another strong point there on the higher ground, blow a mine. It was then learned that it would be better to blow a number of mines not too far away from each other. And that's what the Brits did a year later in Flanders with the Battle of Messines, the biggest mine battle ever. They were then digging, there's a bit of discussion about the numbers, but about 26 mines towards the Brits, towards the German lines, of which they were using 19 of them. And in the central part of the attack, they were installing mines every 300-400 meters away from each other, which meant if this went up and 300 meters further one went up and 300 meters further one went up, it created a kind of an earthquake because of the massive charges and the vicinity of the explosions. And that had a much better result as the use of mines in the Somme. In Flanders they blew these 19 mines, of which about half of them were very much in the center and very close to each other, and the Germans, even if they knew that this attack would come, they were just blown away. Also morally, the descriptions then in 17 with this attack in Flanders say that the Germans, well, they say some were weeping on the ground calling for their mother, some were just dead, sitting dead in their bunkers from just a blast. So it was very effective there. So that's what I was describing with tanks as well. You can master the technique of tunneling and blowing a mine, but you also